ওকে, আমরা ক্লাসটি শুরু করি। আমরা অলরেডি কবিতার নামটি দেখতে পাচ্ছি। ইটস দ্য সানস অফ ডি, written by Charles Kingsley. The illustration isn't clear, and so from the illustration nothing can be guessed. Let's move on. This is the beginning of the poem. Do you see the quotation mark at the beginning? And the quotation mark ends at the end of fourth line. Then there are two more lines. Let's read the first stanza. O Mary, go and call the cattle home, and call the cattle home, and call the cattle home. Across the sons of D, the western wind was wild and dank with foam, and all alone went she. Now, in the first verse, we see a name, Mary, and an apostrophe. Mary is being called by Mary's mother. Mary's mother calls Mary and uh, tells her to go and call the cattle home. Now, till the moment we know this information, two questions arise in our mind. Question one, why isn't the mother herself going to call the cattle home? And question two, where is Mary's brother or father? The answer may be the mother is busy at home. She cannot go. Mother is busy with some other work like cooking. So normally it's the time to call the cattle home in the afternoon or before the evening. And this is the time when a mother prepares food for supper. And we hear the name of a river. The river is D. As the family lives beside a river, it is a village area. And in that village area, there might not be any electricity or modern facilities. So preparing the food in the afternoon is the best option. Again, river areas are always filled with air or wind. And this wind makes keeping a candle lightened at night unsteady. So it's better to do everything during the day, and during the night, it's time for taking rest in the dark. And because of that, the mother is busy with the food, and so she is calling the daughter to bring the cattle home. And why isn't the father or brother of the girl going to call the cattle home? Maybe she is the only child and she does not have a father because he may have died. The western wind was wild and dank with foam, and all alone went she. Now, the last two verses of the first stanza are from the writer, Charles Kingsley. He is giving description of why calling the cattle home is necessary. Calling the cattle home is necessary because the wind from the west is wild. There might be some storm or something like that. and dank with foam. Foam is the bubbles created at the shore of the river. And all alone went she. So how she went there? She went there alone. No one accompanied her. Now we do not see any quotation mark in the second stanza. That means this is the description given by the poet. The western tide crept up along the sand and over the sand and round the sand as far as I could see. The rolling mist came down and hid the land, and never home came she. This is the description what happened after that. After Mary went to call the cattle home. What happened? The western tide crept up. So the tide in the river increased, river water increased. It crept up along the sand, over and over the sand, and round the sand, as far as I could see. That means there has been a shore flooding or some kind of surge, surge, tidal surge or like that. That rolling mist came down and hit the land. So it was actually a tidal surge, or can be a flooding type of something. And never home came she. In the wild wind, the tidal surge may have become so dangerous and life killing. And for this reason, Mary couldn't come back with the cattle. We don't know whether the cattle could come or not. If the cattle could come, then Mary must have been able to return home on the backs of the cattle swimming. But the writer has not given us such information. He has concealed it. The rolling mist came down, that means the tide came down and hit the land, and never home came she. That means she got drowned. She died. Oh, is it weed? Weed is the grass, aquatic grass. Aquatic grass cannot stand on its own. They need some kind of support. Aquatic grasses are not so strong. They are very thin uh, due to the tide. They move on and on, so they need some support, and the support is known as stake here in the poem. Is it wheat? So as you see the quotation mark, again, this is the mother. O is the exclamation mark. You see that? The mother is exclaiming. That means she sees something in the water, something which might give her hope. So what happened if a child doesn't come back? The mother becomes extremely worried. The mother becomes extremely worried and cries, weeps, and her eyes become reddish. She may have not taken food in the shock because of the shock of losing her daughter. Maybe she, along with some other people, was looking for her daughter. And while looking for her daughter in the river water, she sees something in the water which is very thin. It looks like blondie hair, golden hair. So she is calling it, is it weed or fish or floating hair? A trace of golden hair. Trace means a sign. Drowned maiden's hair above the nets at sea was never salmon yet that shone so fair among the stakes of D. These 6 lines are a bit trifling to the audience if they do not have any knowledge of fish and salmon and the color of wheat. Normally, grass is green, we know it, but aquatic grass isn't green because isn't green because it doesn't get the sun ray all through in the water. When it gets upward, it gets the sun ray. So the upper part might be green, but the lower part in the water maybe some having some golden color or whitish golden or bluish golden like that. So it is very thin, and so the mother sees the weed. Now another question: why is there a fish and salmon? The fish is salmon is here in this poem. What is the connection? Let's try to uncover. Salmon fish. You see this one. Look at this one. It's a salmon fish. See the color of salmon fish. It's a golden brown over here. So fish found in river has this color. But fish which has not been living in river water for long, rather been cultivated, doesn't have this color. The cultivated one may have this whitish color. As the salmon fish has this color, the mother is doubting whether it is a seaweed, sea grass, or a salmon fish color that I can see, or a floating hair, because her daughter's hair was brown, golden brown. We call it blondie hair. We call it blonde. This using this word. Okay, blonde is a color. You can see this image maybe. And if you look at this image color over here at the hair of this girl, maybe you get to the notion that this color is almost like the color of the salmon fish that I marked at. And that is why the mother is getting confused, like whether it was the salmon fish, color of salmon fish, or the color of floating hair, or the color of weed. Now, what does she see? A trace of golden hair. So it's actually a bush of golden hair. A drowned maiden's hair. Now she's sure. She sees the head, maybe head of the girl. So she had been drowned in water, and her hair is there. Hairs normally go upward as they are not so wet. And we know that dead body do not sink in water; they rather float. So where is that color? Where is that uh, hair? Above the nets at sea, above the nets. So uh, some fishing people took the net to find out the dead body. In their net, it came, the dead body came. And before the net was pulled back to the shore completely, the mother could see this hair. So was never salmon yet. That was not salmon fish that shone so far. So salmon fish never shone so fair, so bright among the stakes of deep. This whole stanza is from the mother. Now the writer is writing this part. They round her in cross in across the rolling foam. So you know that in the beside the river in the shore there is bubbles, and these bubble through these bubbles the fishermen, the people who took their net to find the dead body, brought Mary to the shore. The cruel crawling foam. The mother has lost her daughter and she is emotional. She is using these words to explain the foam, but it's actually the writer who is feeling the mother's emotion and using these words. The cruel crawling foam, the cruel hungry foam, to her grave beside the sea. So where did they put the dead body of Mary? They didn't go to any other place, rather, they just decided to bury her beside the shore, beside the river D. And so the word grave is here, to her grave beside the sea. But still, the boatmen hear her call the cattle home. Now, in the river, boatmen row their boats. When they row their boats, sometimes some of them hear the voice of Mary calling the cattle home across the sands of day. This is some kind of giving permanence. Death makes a person's memory permanent to some people, maybe, or some kind of haunted experience to the boatman, or it is the reflection of Mary in the minds of the boatmen who are not strong enough to call it nothing, but they hear their own inner voice. That's the end of the story and the poem. This is a very sad poem. Siam came to my place and I locked the door so he couldn't enter. As no one else came, so I didn't unlock the door. You suddenly came and touched the door and went away. So I even got no chance of thinking about who came. So as you are now online, do it. No problem. So let's see the rhyme scheme. Before that, we need to talk about some few words regarding this poem. So what type of poem is this? This is a ballad, Ballad. This is a ballad. We need to know what a ballad is. Do not call the word a ballad or something like that. It's ballad. A slow, sentimental, or romantic song. A poem or song narrating a story in short stanzas. Traditional ballads are typically of unknown authorship, having been passed on orally from one generation to the next. That's a ballad. Again, this ballad has a very tragic scenario. A person dies. If the death of the main character of a written piece of work is present in the story, then we call it a tragedy. So from that perspective, we can call it a tragic ballad. A tragic ballad is a narrative song or poem that tells a story of misfortune or sorrow. often confusing on a central dramatic event. These stories frequently involve love, loss, and betrayal, and are typically presented in a musical or poetic form that has been passed down orally. Examples include traditional folk ballads like Barbara Allen and literary ballads like John Keats's La Belle Dame Sans Merci. So here is a song, which is a ballad. We wouldn't hear it. Now, each stanza has six verses. We can see it. We need to see the rhyme scheme of the stanzas. Home, home, home. 3A. A, D, B, form A. A, B, A, B. D, she. So see the rhyme scheme. B, A, B. Again, we'll find the same rhyme scheme. If you call sand A, then A. If you call C B, then A, B. The same rhyme scheme dominating the stanzas. So let's now move on to what sheet am I going to give you. Here is the poem that I have just copied for you from Poetry Foundation. We need to know about Charles Kingsley. Here is a short description about him. Now, here is the summary of the poem. The poem tells the sad story of Mary. One day, she goes out alone to bring the cattle home across the sands near the River Dee. The wind is strong and the sea is wild. The mist comes down and covers everything. Mary gets lost in the mist and never returns. Later, people wonder if the golden hair floating in the sea is hers. They find her drowned body and bury her near the sea. Even after her death, people imagine hearing her voice calling the cattle home across the sense of D. Short analysis of the poem. The poem is a tragic ballad that focuses on the themes of loss, danger, and memory. Loss of life of Mary, danger living beside the river, and memory, people hear her voice. It is spare and simple, with a focus on sound and repetition, as I saw the rhyme A, B. The repetition of the line and call the cattle home creates a sense of urgency and foreboding, while the use of the word D as the name of the river adds to the sense of place. The poem is set in a time when the sea was a dangerous and unforgiving place, and the loss of a young woman to the tides was a common tragedy. The poem captures the sense of loss and grief experienced by the community, as well as the fear and uncertainty that accompanied life on the coast. It is a powerful and moving portrait of a tragedy that could have happened to any of the women who lived in that time and place. Now we need to know about what is tragedy. This part will answer your question. I'll not go through it in details, but just know that it's actually a type of literary piece of writing, mostly a play or drama. It can be of any type, but mostly dramas have been the most significant ones to use tragedy. In it, the main character dies because of his own fault. But here it may not be the fault of Mary, rather, it is the fault of the place and time, and it is also the fault of the river, or it is the fate actually. So, a dreadful, fatal, and calamitous event that results in great loss and misfortune, often involving death, and death of a favorite person in the story. Favorite person is the hero, heroine, or the protagonist, I call it. Protagonist, the main character. Now, it's again a ballad. A ballad is a form of verse, song, or poem that tells a story. The word is derived from the Latin word ballare, meaning to dance, as early ballads were often performed as dance songs. Now, it's a tragic ballad. So, a tragic ballad is a narrative poem or song that tells a sorrowful story, often ending in disaster and featuring a character's downfall or death. These stories typically involve serious themes and are intended to evoke strong emotions like pity and fear in the listener or reader. Examples include traditional folk ballads like Barbara Allen and more modern literary ballads such as Edgar Allan Poe's Annabel Lee. So you may study it in detail. Theme of the poem. The poem shows the sadness of a girl named Mary who went to bring the cattle home but never returned. It talks about the dangers of nature like the sea and the mist. It also shows how love and duty and tragedy are part of life. Even after her death, people feel her presence and hear her voice. The most famous and oft quoted lines from Charles Kingsley's poem, The Scents of Deer, found in the recurring refrain and descriptions of the tragic event. So, there, the rhyme scheme of the poem is A, B, A, B. Description of Mary's fate is described like rolling mist came down and hit the land, and never home came she. Here, it was Mary's fate that the writer has encaptured. Description of the sea. They rowed her in across the rolling foam, cruel crawling foam, cruel hungry foam, to her grave beside the sea. So these lines effectively captured the poem's themes of nature's indifference, human vulnerability, and the lingering presence of tragedy. Quotations and answers on the poem. Now, some common questions. Who is Mary in the poem? Is a young girl sent to call the cattle home. She is the central figure of the poem who tragically never returns. What task was Mary given? She was told to call the cattle home across the sands of Dee. It was a simple, everyday task that led to tragedy. Who asked Mary to call the cattle? Her family or elders gave her the task, likely her mother or someone from home. This is implied in the repeated command in the first stanza. Where did Mary go? She went across the sands of Dee to find and call the cattle. These sands were near the sea and treacherous during tides. Okay, we may move to the middle. What poetic devices does Kingsley use? He uses repetition, imagery, and personification. These enhance the emotional and rhythmic quality of the poem. Why does Mary go alone? The poem implies she was sent alone despite the risks. Her isolation heightens the tragedy of her fate. What comparison is made to emphasize her hair's beauty? It shines so fair that no summon in the D matches it. This highlights her unnatural presence in death. How is the form personified? Cruel, crawling, hungry. So normally it's humans who are hungry or animals that are hungry. The foam are not hungry. The writer has imagined the foam to be hungry, and this is uh, implying that the forms are having qualities like human, and this is called as personification, depicting nature as a malevolent force. A malevolent force is a destructive force. It is opposite to benevolent. The form embodies danger and inevitability. Where is Mary buried? Beside the sea, near the sands that claimed her. Her grave ties her eternally to the treacherous landscape. What literary device dominates the repeated lines? Anaphora, as in call the cattle home, and cruel foam. Repetition amplifies urgency and dread. Now you may ask, what is anaphora? Anaphora is the use of a word referring back to a word used earlier in a text or conversation. Maybe you have heard the word anagram. To avoid repetition, for example, the pronouns she, he, it, they, and the verb do in I like it and so do they. These are examples of anaphora. When we use a pronoun, it refers back to the subject, another noun. So it is an anaphora. So in rhetoric, the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of successive clauses. That means in some of the clauses, the same phrase call the cattle home is repeated again and again, again and again, and it refers back to the first instance. Why is the foam called cruel and hungry? To personify nature as a devouring entity, it reflects the poem's theme of humanity's vulnerability. I've just mentioned as short as possible. You need to elaborate. What does burial beside the sea signify? A permanent bond between Mary and Dee. It suggests nature's ultimate ownership of her. What does the poem say about nature's power? Nature is indifferent, destructive, and dominant. Humanity's efforts are futile against its mind. What is the central story of the poem? You know it already. How does the poet describe the weather? You already know it. It has a dank, wild and dank storm, wind, foamy western wind, tide creeps up the sand, and rolling mist descends and hiding the land. These are the words that have been used to describe the weather. How does the poet depict the sea? Almost nearer. The poet